everyone. Welcome back to Interfaith Friends, a vodcast of Shepherd of the Lake Lutheran Church, where we value our neighbor's faith. We honor the sacred stories of our neighbors as we learn from one another and work together to foster a more just and peaceful world. So today I have John Emery back with me. Thank you so much, John, for coming on back. And John is the executive director of the Islamic Resource Group. And so, John, we're here today to talk about, drumroll, Ramadan. So Ramadan is coming up very soon. And you've been preparing for Ramadan. And I was just telling John before this that I was having a conversation with my 10-year-old about what I get to do right now and Ramadan. And then I was trying to explain what it is. And I realized, I do not know as much as I thought I knew. So, John, could you just give us just sort of the nuts and bolts of what Ramadan is? And I'd also love to hear from you about what Ramadan is like here, right? Like, what is it? And then also, what is it here? Like, what is Ramadan to you, and how does it enrich your life as a person of faith? So once again, of course, I'm like, could you do all of this in 20 minutes, please? Which is like, no, but let's see what we get to, right? So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm really thrilled to be part of this again. This is really exciting for me. And this is my favorite subject to be talking about this time of year. So I'm actually, as we were chatting beforehand as well, I was telling you that this interview, this little discussion with you is actually a part of my Ramadan preparations. So as I'm sitting here kind of reflecting for myself, what does this mean for me, right? What do I hope to get out of this, and so on and so forth. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. So maybe mechanics. Let's start with, what is Ramadan very in a brief nutshell? I would say, so Ramadan is actually the name of the 9th month on the Islamic calendar. So the Islamic calendar has 12 months. The difference between that and the Gregorian is the Islamic calendar is based on the phases of the moon, right? So it's a lunar calendar. So what that means for us in practice is that the month of Ramadan every year comes 11 days earlier. And as you said, it's coming up shortly. April 2nd, which is a Saturday, will be the first day of fasting this year, which is the predicted date for that. So during that month, I think this year it's April 2nd until May 1st. So it's about 30 days typically. Because like I said, lunar makes it sometimes a 1 or 2 days difference. But be that as it may, during the month of Ramadan, what Muslims believe is that healthy adult Muslims are obligated to fast for those 30 days of Ramadan, right? And again, this year is kind of nice because, with the changing calendars or the overlapping calendars, it's right, we've got some Lenten and Ramadan overlap this year in terms of the fasting seasons, which is kind of nice. A good little interfaith moment for the next few years. But be that as it may, Muslims believe that during the month, healthy adult Muslims must fast from dawn until sunset every day for those 30 days. So it is a daylight fast. And what fasting means in the Muslim tradition is completely abstaining from all food and all drink, and not even water all day long. Right?
I've actually seen T-shirts that say that, not even water. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
When I give talks, a friend of mine, so if you, the lunar calendar comes 11 days earlier. So if you think a few years ago, we were fasting during the summer, right? During the longest day of the year, and we're very far north of the equator. So there's, summertime, dawn is as early as 3:30 a.m. and sunset becomes as late as about 9 p.m. for us, right? So a friend of mine has the T-shirt, and I show that picture whenever I give talks about Ramadan, because that's the most common question. Nothing to drink, not even water? No, it's a complete fast. And for Muslims as well. So there's food, nothing, no food, no drink, but also no intimate relations either during the month, or at least during the daylight hours, to be clear. So sort of abstaining from those, sort of biological necessities that we have, right? Just for that brief period every day during the month. At sunset, Muslims are encouraged to break their fast very promptly as soon as they can, and can eat and drink normally, and with their spouses, be intimate as they wish. But again, if just waking up early the next day, having a very early morning breakfast before dawn, and just repeating that process for about the 30 days or so of the month of Ramadan. So yeah, that's kind of the mechanics, right? And I mentioned too, it's for healthy adults. So all of the obligations or the pillars of Islam, they're all for healthy adult Muslims. They're very challenging, but they are, they're supposed to be reasonable challenges. Mm-hmm. So again, what that means is there's a long list of exemptions for fasting. My wife has not fasted for, I think, at least the last 2 years. But she's been pregnant or nursing for the past maybe 3 years actually during Ramadan. So she actually hasn't fasted for 3 years. So this year, hopefully that she'll be practicing again this year during the month of Ramadan. So again, it's for healthy adults. It's a challenge, but a reasonable challenge. So that's kind of the mechanics of it. And just really briefly too, I hope, kind of what that looks like in my house or my home here, right? So for us, so April 2nd, Saturday morning, I will be waking up early, and I believe dawn is about 5:40 that morning. Don't quote me on that, but dawn is going to be about 5:40. So we'll be waking up, 5:10, 5:15, something like that. I'll get up. I'll wake up whoever else in my house is fasting that day. We'll have a little breakfast here, whatever's easy to kind of make, and when you're that tired in the morning, eat our breakfast. Do once dawn happens, 5:40 or so, do our dawn prayer, and then it's other than the fact that we're fasting, it's normal life. So work, school, play, whatever's going on, we're living our lives and doing our prayers. It's just that we're fasting while we're doing so, right? And then for us, one thing that we really try to do with my family is make sure that as sunset is approaching, we will go to our local mosque. So we're breaking fast, with other Muslims, or just, anyone who happens to be there. Hopefully, it's an open house, of course, it's God's house. It doesn't just belong to us. But, breaking fast with other Muslims who may or may not be fasting, but just, doing that as a communal experience, right? We're all it's an individual obligation, but we do it together. And that's part of the, as I transition into kind of more of the meaning of it, right? That's a really important part of the meaning of it, is the fact that we are doing this as a community, right? Yeah. Especially this year when we haven't been able to practice as a community the past couple of years, as you all know as well. Yeah. So we'll go, we'll be going at sunset. I'm blessed. I have a new mosque, a recent one, which is about 10 minutes from my house. Thank God. So it's easy for me to pop over there, be it for whatever, popping in for prayers, but going over for sunset prayer and breaking fast during Ramadan is really important to us. And then we'll probably, after we break fast, we'll do our sunset prayer and then just sit down for a meal with everybody. Right. So it's very much, like I said, that communal experience of sitting and breaking bread with people, worshiping together, but also, I think, worship also has, to me, worship also has a sense of celebration too. It's a joyful experience, right? Oh, yeah. And sharing the worship, but also sharing the joyful aspect of that with other people is something that I find just deeply meaningful for me in my life. Yeah. Of course.
So is there a communal meal every night then?
It depends on the mosque. It depends on the mosque. It depends on the mosque and what resources they have available.
Sure. So like a potluck?
Catering. It's usually catered. Okay. Because organizing a potluck for 30 days in a row is, oh my goodness.
Like organizing a potluck one time is like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And that's usually so usually if a mosque has the resources, they'll ask people, can you sponsor a meal this evening, or, what evening can you sponsor? And then instead of just like potluck, just give us the cash. We'll go get it catered, and somebody, it'll be delivered, and boom, there's it's easy peasy. Because we want to focus on the worship and so on and so forth. We don't want to be spending all the time, cooking instead of when we could be focused on, the intention of the month, which is really the worship and the spiritual aspect of it, right? Yeah. So usually, it's catered. Yeah. And then, but no, like you said, usually the day after, right, for Eid, for the holiday right after Ramadan, I'm actually, I'm already booked that day, and we're having a big potluck for the Eid celebration. When people, I guess, they kind of have more time on their hands. But it's usually catered, depending on the mosque, of course. Okay.
Is this a good time to put in a plug for the open house at the Prior Lake Mosque?
Yeah, let's do that. That's a great segue. Thank you.
It's so clunky. Insert segue here.
This is a good opportunity to talk about a very important series of dinners that we have in the state of Minnesota. So actually, The Minnesota Council of Churches has been for the past several years, don't quote me, I don't know what the number is, but they've been helping mosques around the state organize like open house breaking fast dinners, or what we call an iftar. I'm sure I already used that word a couple times without explaining what it means. But iftar is the Arabic word for breaking fast, and we use that to refer to breaking fast in the evening during Ramadan. Mm-hmm. So the Minnesota Council of Churches has been helping mosques across the state just organize these iftar, kind of like open house dinners. And like I said earlier, if anybody wants to visit a mosque, please feel free. It's you can come anytime for sure. But again, when we have these open houses, it's a planned event. We've got more resources. We've got extra food on hand. We've got volunteers there to make sure all of our guests are welcome. But the Minnesota Council of Churches has been organizing these Taking Heart dinners for a number of years. And this year, thank God, we're almost back to normal. So we have, I think, so far we have about 20 mosques in the state which are doing these open house Taking Heart dinners. And the good news for you is that the Prior Lake Mosque is having one, and I know I just said the date. I think it was April 15th. Is that the date I just told you?
Yes, April 15th. Yep.
Yes. So April 15th, I'm going to share with you the link to register to that. It's free. We just want to get a head count so we know how much food to have. But yeah, April 15th will be the Prior Lake Mosque for anyone, and everyone is invited. Please come. It would be a great time to see you all and make some new friends. And for people who haven't visited a mosque, it's just you get to see inside of a mosque and kind of what happens there.
Yeah. It's just so fantastic. So thank you for being part of that and for the invitation. So
I promise you'll know at least one person there. I will be there, so you'll see at least one familiar face.
Awesome. So more on sort of the personal side for you of Ramadan. How does this month of, you said that you look forward to this month of fasting, and it's really hard. Like both things are true. So how is this really hard month of practice? How does that enrich your life as a person of faith?
Wow, and there's so many different answers I could provide here. But let me just say, generally speaking, Muslims believe that Ramadan is sacred time. This is for Muslims. These 30 days or so. This month is the most sacred time of the year, right, on the calendar as we, as we're going through our lives. And what that means, obviously, all time is sacred as well as space, but this is the most sacred time. And what that means for Muslims is that this month of Ramadan is when really it's like Muslims believe that in a sense, like we are closer to heaven during this time, than we will be at any other time of the year or throughout our lives, right? So Muslims believe that God is showering humanity with his mercy during this month. More so, right? God is infinitely merciful. We know this. Yet Muslims believe that this is a particularly sacred time for Muslims, or the whole world generally. And this is an objectively sacred time. At least Muslims believe so, right? So, which is one of the reasons why we love sharing it, right? It's part of the celebration and the joy is to share what we're feeling with other people, right? Please come to the Taking Heart dinner. But Muslims believe the gates of heaven are wide open and God is just showering us with his mercy, right? Not only that, but with God's forgiveness, right? And again, right, in Islam, we understand God to be infinitely forgiving. Not only that, but Muslims believe it is beneath God's dignity, right, not to answer our prayers. When a human being comes begging God for forgiveness, God is, in a sense, has to forgive us because it would be beneath his dignity not to answer that call, right? That ask or that question for some forgiveness, right? But during Ramadan, it's like the gates are wide open and God is just begging us, not begging us, but, God is just asking us, please come to me, right?
Yeah.
So there's part of the Muslim tradition is that, when we take a step towards God, God takes up, hundreds of steps towards us, right? Because in a sense, God is just waiting, ready to accept our asking of him. Yeah. And so during Ramadan, it's a particularly sacred month because it's just the gates of heaven are wide open. Muslims believe the gates of hell are actually locked.
Oh, wow.
Like the devil is actually chained up during this sacred month. But for us as human beings, as Muslims, right, it's a unique opportunity for us to engage in worship, to engage in penitence, to engage in supplications to God without the interference of, you know what I'm saying? Like the devil doing his business, right? What shoulder is he on, right? Whispering in our ear, right? He's chained up and the gates of heaven are wide open. So it's easier for us during this time, Muslims believe, to kind of be more pious, right? To help transform our hearts, right? Through the practice. And I mean, you know, this is, again, it's praxis, right? It's a discipline. Right. And especially so during Ramadan, this is an experience which has the potential to shape our hearts, shape our lives for the rest of our lives, right? Yeah. And especially to earn God's, but to get, you know, to get God's forgiveness, right? To receive God's forgiveness merely simply by asking sincerely, right? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's challenging, you know, but like I said, to me, you know, there's a vibe, you know?
Yeah.
You know this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know this, and I mean, there's that palpable sense almost when you walk into sacred space, when you walk into the sanctuary of a church. And, you know, you all know this, right? Man, there's a vibe here. You know, you walk into sacred space. I mean, you know, some people may have experienced, you know, I mean, even if you're outdoors in nature, sometimes you'll come to a space and you're like, oh, there's something different going on here, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, instead of that sense of space, it's that sense of time, right? Being in a time which is more sacred, and it's something that you can really feel, especially when you gather together as a community. And, you know, if you're in a room with hundreds of people, you know, hundreds of people who are just from the bottoms of their hearts begging God for forgiveness, right? I mean, there's a vibe during that month of Ramadan that is indescribable, but it's something that we can share and can be experienced, you know. And that's like just that vibe by itself is a powerful. It's reward in itself for me, right? It's being in it, but it is a challenge, like I said. So I mean, being able to forego, like what does it mean if we can forego those very basic desires, not just desires but needs, you know, food and drink and physical intimacy, right? I mean, if we can forego those needs for, you know, what, you know. I'm trying to think, what's day length, you know, 14, 16, 18 hours, depending on the time of year. I mean, what does that tell us? What do we learn from that, right? We learn that we are stronger than we thought. Because like you said, a lot of people are like, not even water? You're like, a lot of people will just tell you, like, I couldn't do that. I'm like, well, I promise you can. Right? You could, you know? And that's part of the process is like, you know, in a sense, God is telling us that you are stronger than you thought you were. I'm asking you to do this, not for me, right? God doesn't need us to fast. I mean, our prayers don't affect God. Our fasting doesn't affect God. Whether I pray or not, or fast or not, God remains, right?
God remains, full stop. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, yet, you know, in a sense, you know, I always think back to, think back to Abraham, right? I mean, God knew what Abraham was going to do. But did Abraham know that? Right? I mean, right, but Abraham, right? I mean, that's, in a sense, right? So God is proving to us how strong and capable we are of worshiping and doing his work, right? If I can do this, what else can I do, right? If I can do this, sure, I can give a few bucks extra this month. You know what I'm saying? I mean, making my 5 daily prayers becomes easier, right? If you can go, man, 18, like what is it, 16, 17, 18-hour days in the summertime when we were fasting?
Yeah.
You know, that was challenging. Yeah, think what else we can do, right? And so and sometimes I feel like God is sending us this message, like, you can do this, and look at the great things that you're capable of. What are we capable of as human beings if we sacrifice our ego, you know, to God and what he wants us to do?
Wait, what? Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So to me, that's a part of it too. It's like, you know, there's this, like I said, there's this weird relationship, right? Where, I mean, again, it's not for God, it's for us, right? So it's really important for Muslims. There's some of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, you know, whatever, 1400 years or so ago, when the Prophet Muhammad was alive and, you know, preaching and teaching and living, you know, his companions and, you know, after his passage, the people who were friends and, you know, his you know, bosom companions and so on and so forth. One of their common practices was for the 6 months leading up to Ramadan, they would begin praying, like doing these short prayers, asking God and I'm going to paraphrase here roughly. There's a short prayer that goes, oh God, please preserve me for next Ramadan, and preserve Ramadan for me, and make it a good Ramadan for me, right? So basically asking God to make, allow them to live for another 6 months to make it to Ramadan, right? And then, make Ramadan a good month for me, and a month in which my prayers are accepted, in which, you shower me with your forgiveness and your love and your mercy, right? So for the 6 months leading up to Ramadan, that very pious generation of Muslims were every day asking God, just get me there, because the rewards, Muslims believe that the mercy and the rewards of Ramadan are so great, that those companions would just beg and ask God, please get me there, so I can have more of that good stuff that you're giving us during the month of Ramadan. Yeah. So and that's something that we think about. Like I said, it's, once Ramadan ends, even though it's great to have a cup of coffee at 9 o'clock in the morning, but there is a sense of loss that comes with that at the end of the month as well. And then so some Muslims will even pray, start praying then, asking God, thanking God for that Ramadan that they just went through for 6 months. And then kind of once it shifts, as we get closer to the next Ramadan, that changing that prayer from thank you for Ramadan to please give me another one, right? Yeah. Because like I said, there is a palpable sense of loss that does come with the end of Ramadan. Yeah. Kind of back to normal space, normal time, the day after Christmas, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. So does Eid feel kind of bittersweet then when you have the big celebration? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Because the opportunities are so profound during the month of Ramadan, and during that sacred time, and we kind of lose those opportunities once we go back into normal time. Yeah.
Yeah. We have in our calendar, in the church calendar, we have the sort of the seasons. We've got Advent, and there's, we have Epiphany, Christmas, of course, Epiphany, and then Lent, which we're in right now, and then Easter and the Easter season. And then there's Pentecost, and then there's what's called ordinary time. And that's for about half of the year, right? And so that's the time when we just sort of, I think that if it was like all hyper sacred all the time, that would be difficult too. Like, we need time to be able to metabolize that experience of being so close to the divine, and to be able to metabolize that and sort of integrate it into the way that we show up in the world, for that kind of ordinary time, right? We need some ordinary time to metabolize. I'm wondering how we can be good neighbors to folks who are fasting during Ramadan. If we have, if we're in meetings or whatever, how do we be good neighbors?
Well, one thing that I always say too is at work, especially, lunch meetings, that kind of stuff. It would be polite if you have Muslim colleagues, it would be polite maybe instead of those lunch meetings, maybe have meetings, without the food, for example, or even just ask, what are you, ask your friends, ask your Muslim colleagues, ask them those tell me more questions. Yeah. Hey, I heard Ramadan's coming up. What does that mean, right? Are you fasting this year or not? Or, what does that mean? So, ask a lot of those beautiful tell me more questions, those open-ended questions. But just respect that some people might be, hungry, right? And so those those lunch meetings and that kind of stuff, it might be nice to postpone those until May this year. Yeah. Because some people might be uncomfortable just, sitting in a room full of food when they're trying to fast. Yeah. Schools, we always ask schools, make sure there's a room available for students who are fasting, where they, like a library, where they can just go chill, so they're not sitting at a lunch table with all their friends who are eating food, right? Right. It's really challenging, right? Especially for young people. So the other thing too is, if you know somebody who's Muslim, the beautiful blessing that Muslims use is Eid Mubarak, right? Which is an Arabic expression. So my apologies for that. So a good way of remembering that is to say, blessed Eid. Yeah. So EID, the Arabic word Eid, we use that to refer to the Muslim holidays. So we keep the word Eid, but to say blessed Eid. And that's during Eid, but say blessed Ramadan during the month of Ramadan, right? Ramadan Mubarak, blessed Ramadan.
Yeah.
Say that, and I mean, if you say that to your Muslim friends, neighbors, colleagues, you'll probably see their faces light up.
Yeah.
Something trivial like that, just knowing that it's Ramadan and it's a sacred time for someone is powerful. And sharing that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so simple things like that are very, very powerful.
Yeah.
But what I always tell people is, what I've learned as well is, ask those tell me more questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you fasting this year? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One of our practices here during Ramadan is we bake treats for people, for our neighborhood. So I'm going to be baking bean pies this year, and we'll be bringing bean pies to all of our neighbors for Ramadan this year, and maybe for Eid too. I'm not sure. Depends how much energy we have during Ramadan. But yeah, that's part of our practice as a Muslim family is celebrating Ramadan is to share the sweetness with other people, but bringing them cupcakes or whatever we feel like making that year. But yeah, just saying Ramadan, blessed Ramadan, is a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah, thanks. That's at the core of many of our faith traditions is love one another, right? Love God and love each other and love yourself, right? And that is, I think, one of the most loving things we can do for one another is just to say, I see you, and you matter, right? And so, so just that simple acknowledgement of blessed Ramadan, I see that you're celebrating and you matter and that matters, right? So, yeah, cool. Well,
and then, what? And let me say too, just if you do that, you might get an invite to dinner.
Actually, you do have an invite to dinner, and we will. We'll get that out to you as well for the Taking Heart Iftar dinner. So, John, thank you so much for coming back and hanging out with me again. For Interfaith Friends, I treasure our friendship. I treasure our colleagueship in the interfaith world, and I'm grateful for you. So, thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a wonderful opportunity. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to this. And like I said, I would love to see you, and I'd love to see as many people from your community as possible at the Taking Heart dinner in Prior Lake. That'd be a great blessing. That'd be, again, as you mentioned too, right? Loving our neighbors is right. That's a part of our faith tradition, all of our faith traditions.
Yeah.
So, and breaking bread together and sharing space is so important for us these days. And I would love to see as many people as possible there. I promise you'll have a great time. There'll be really good food. I know where the food's coming from.
I know there's really good food. I'm excited already. I'm starting to get hungry. I'm like, what time is it? 3:30. Come on. All right. Thanks so much, John.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum.